The Contention of Achilles and Agamemnon. In the War of Troy, the Greeks, having sacked some of the neighboring towns and taking from them two beautiful captives, Chryseis and Brias, allotted the first to Agamemnon and the last to Achilles. Chryses, the father of Chryseis and the priest of Apollo, comes to the Grecian camp to ransom her, with which the action of the poem opens. In the 10th year of this siege, the priest being refused and insolently dismissed by Agamemnon, entreats for vengeance from his god, who inflicts a pestilence on the Greeks. Achilles calls for a council and encourages Chalcis to declare the cause of it, who attributes it to the refusal of Chryseis. The king, being obliged to send back his captive, enters into a furious contest with Achilles, which Nestor pacifies. However, as he had the absolute command of the army, he seizes on Briseis in revenge. Achilles is discontent, withdraws himself and his forces from the rest of the Greeks, and complaining to Titius, she supplicates Jupiter to render them sensible of the wrong done to her son by giving victory to the Trojans. Jupiter, granting her suit, incenses Juno, between whom the debate runs high, till they are reconciled by the address of Vulcan. The time of 22 days is taken up in this book, 9 during the plague, 1 in the council and the quarrel of the princes, and 12 for Jupiter's stay with the Athenians, and at whose return Tisis prefers her petition. The scene lies in the Grecian camp, then changes to Chrysa, and lastly to Olympias. Achilles' wrath to Greece, the direful spring of woes unnumbered, heavenly goddess sing. That wrath which hurled to Pluto's gloomy reign the souls of mighty chiefs untimely slain, whose limbs unburied on the naked shore, devouring dogs and hungry vultures tore. Since great Achilles and Astrides strove, such was the sovereign doom, and such the will of Jove. Declare, O Muse, in what ill-fated hour sprung the fierce strife, from what offended power Lation's son, a dire contagion spread, and heaped the camp with mountains of the dead. The king of men his reverent priest defied, and for the king's offense the people died. For Chryseis sought with costly gifts to gain his captive daughter from the victor's chain. Supplicant the venerable father stands, Apollo's awful ensigns grace his hands. By these he begs and lowly bends down, extends the scepter and the laurel crown. He sued to all, but chief implored for grace, the brothers king of Atreus' royal race. Ye kings and warriors, may your vows be crowned, and Troy's proud walls lie level with the ground. May Jove restore you when your toils are o'er, safe to the pleasures of your native shore. But oh, relieve a wretched parent's pain, and give Chryseis to these arms again. If mercy fail, let my presence move, and dreadful avenging Proteus, son of Jove. The Greeks in shouts their joint assent declare, the priest to reverence and released the fair. Not so astrides he, with kingly pride, repulsed the sacred sire, and thus replied, hence on thy life, and fly these hostile plains, nor ask, presumptuous, what the king detains. Hence thy laurel crown and golden rod, nor trust too far those ensigns of thy God. Mine is thy daughter, priest, and shall remain, and prayers and tears and bribes shall plead in vain. till time shall rifle every youthful grace, and age dismiss her from my cold embrace. In daily labors of the loom employed, or doomed to deck the bed she once enjoyed. Hence then to Argos shall the maid retire, far from her native soil and weeping sire. Homer invoking the Muse. The trembling priest along the shore returned, and in the anguish of a father mourned. Discontent, not daring to complain, silent he wandered by the sounding main, till safe at distance to his God he prays, the God who darts round the world his rays. O Smithius, sprung from Lation's line, thou guardian power of Scylla divine, thou source of light, who Tendians adores, and whose bright presence glides thy Chrysia shores. If ever with wreaths I hung thy sacred fane, or fed the flames with fat of oxen slain, God of the silver bow, thy shafts employ, avenge thy servant, and the Greeks destroy. Thus Chrysius prayed, the favoring power attends, and from Olympus' lofty tops descends. Bent was his bow, the Grecian hearts to wound. Fierce as he moved, his silver shafts resound. Breathing revenge, a sudden night he spread, and gloomy darkness rolled about his head. The fleet in view, he twanged his deadly bow, and hissing fly the feathered fates below. On mules and dogs the infection first began, and last the vengeful arrows fixed in man. For 9 long days through all the dusty air, the pyres thick, flaming, shot a dismal glare. But ere the 10th revolving day was run, inspired by Juno, Theseus' godlike son convened to council all the Grecian train, for much the goddess mourned her heroes slain. The assembly seated, rising over the rest, Achilles, thus the king of men addressed. Why leave we not the fatal Trojan sore, and measure back the seas we crossed before? The plague destroyed, whom the sword would spare. 'Tis time to save the few remains of war. But let some prophet or sacred sage implore the cause of great Apollo's rage, or learn the wasteful vengeance to remove by mystic dreams, for dreams descend from Jove. If broken vows this heavy curse have laid, let altars smoke and hecatombs be paid. So heaven atoned shall dying Greece restore, and Phoebus dart his burning shafts no more. He said and sat when Chalius thus replied, Chalius the wise, the Grecian priest and guide, that sacred seer whose comprehensive view the past, the present, and the future knew. Uprising slow, the venerable sage, the spoke, the prudence, and the fears of age. Beloved Jove, Achilles, wouldst thou know why angry Phoebus bends his fatal bow? First give thy faith and plight a prince's word of sure protection by thy power and sword. For I must speak what wisdom would conceal, and truths invidious to the great reveal. Bold is the task when subjects grown too wise instruct a monarch where his errors lie. For though we deem the short-lived fury past, 'tis sure the mighty will revenge at last. To whom, Peleus, from thou inmost soul speak what they knowst, and speak without control. Even by that God I swear who rules the day, to whom thy hands the vows of Greece convey, and whose blessed oracles thy lips declare, long as Achilles breathes his vital air. No daring Greek of all the numerous band against his priest shall lift an impious hand, nor even the chief by whom our hosts are led, the King of Kings, shall touch that sacred hand. Encouraged, the blameless man replies, nor vows unpaid, nor slighted sacrifice, But he, our chief, provoked the raging pest, Apollo's vengeance for his injured priest. Nor will the gods, nor will the god awakened fury cease, but plague shall spread and funeral fires increase, till the great king, without a ransom paid, to her own Chrysia send the black-eyed maid, perhaps with added sacrifice and prayer, the priest may pardon and the god may spare. The prophet spoke, when, with a gloomy frown, the monarch stared from his shining throne. Black choler filled his breast that boiled with ire, and from his eyeballs flashed the living fire. Arger, accused, denouncing mischief still, prophet of plagues forever boding ill. Still must that tongue some wounding message bring, and still thy priestly pride provoke thy king? For this our Phoebus oracles explored to teach the Greeks to murmur at their Lord, for this with falsehood is my honor stained. Is heaven offended and a priest profaned? Because my prize, my beauteous maid, I hold, and heavenly charms prefer to proffered gold, a maid untouched in manners as in face, skilled in each art and crowned with every grace. Not half so dear were Crimean's charms, when first her blooming beauties bless my arm. Yet, if the gods demand her, let her sail. Our cares are only for the public weal. Let me be deemed the hateful cause of all, and suffer rather than my people fall. The prize, the beauteous prize, I will resign, so dearly valued and so justly mine. But since the common good, I yield the fair, my private loss let grateful Greece repair. Nor unrewarded let your prince complain that he alone had fought and bled in vain. Insatiate king, Achilles thus replied, fond of power, but fonder of the prize. Wouldn't thou the Greeks their lawful prey should yield, the due reward of many a well-fought field? The spoils of cities razed and the warriors slain, we shall with justice and with toil we gain. But to resume what thy avarice craves, the trick of tyrants may be borne by slaves. Yet if our chief for plunders only fight, the spoils of Iliad will shall thy loss requite. Whenever by Jove decrees our conquering power shall humble to the dust her lofty towers. Thus the king shall I my prize resign, with tame content and now possessed of thine. Great as thou art, like a god in fight, think not to rob me of a soldier's right. And thy demand, shall I restore the maid? First, let the just equivalent be paid, such as a knight might ask, such as a king might ask, and let it be a treasure worthy her and worthy me. Or grant me this with a monarch's claim, this hand shall seize some other captive dame. The mighty Ajax shall his prize resign. Okay, here's some vocabulary words. Chryseis is the daughter of the priest of Apollo. She was captured by the Greeks and given to Agamemnon. Briseis, a captive awarded to Achilles. Her seizure by Agamemnon causes the central conflict. Pestilence and disease, the cause set by Apollo as punishment. And the characters are Achilles, the great Greek warrior, the son of Peleus and Theseus, Agamemnon, king of Mysia, and the commander-in-chief of the Greek forces, Chryseis, priest of Apollo, who comes to ransom his daughter, Apollo, who sends a plague upon the Greeks. And Achilles' wrath to Greek, the direful spring of woes, unnumbered, heavenly God sang. That's the opening line there. And the main locations are Troy, the Grecian camp, and Olympus, the home of the gods. And the metaphors are the plague, a divine retribution, a scepter, authority, transmission, and power.